Hello, my name is Laura Kinney, and this is my project for the neuroanatomy portion of anatomy and physiology. So first we'll start with the structure of the brain as a whole. This is a left hemisphere of the cerebral cortex. And the cerebral cortex is what you see from the outside of the brain. Normally it's folded up gray matter, but it's not very gray here because it's colorful, so you need to see everything. So this is a more colorful representation, but ordinarily the folded gray matter in the brain all forms together to play an important role in the collective consciousness of an individual. But as I said before, this model is a representation of the left hemisphere of the brain. Okay, so we'll start with the blue area. This is the frontal lobe. It is the largest of all of the lobes, and it makes up 1/3 of the cerebral cortex. In this lobe, it predominates in planning and initiation and the inhibition of voluntary motion. Okay, so immediately posterior to that, we have the purple area. And that is considered the motor strip. This area is also referred to as the precentral gyrus of the frontal lobe, and this is the point at which the execution of voluntary motion acts are initiated. Kind of right here with the lighter blue area on the brain, we have Broca's area, and that's a part of the frontal lobe, and that's a big thing in speech-language pathology. Notice that it's the small circle. It's not the whole area, but this particular portion of the brain is responsible for motor planning of speech and the components of expressive language. The parietal lobe is the red area of clay right here. It's posterior to the motor and sensory strips, and this is the primary reception site for somatic senses, and this means that all senses that reach consciousness terminate within the parietal lobe. The sensory strip, it looks like it's red on this video, but it's usually pink in real life, or at least with my model. The sensory strip is anterior to the parietal lobe, and this area is responsible for receiving and sending messages of feeling to and from the different parts of the human body. Lastly, the occipital lobe, this is a yellow color down at the bottom right. This is the posterior limit of the brain, and it is the region that is responsible for receiving visual stimulation as well as some of the higher level visual processing. And this lies inferior and slightly posterior to the parietal lobe. In the back of the occipital lobe, you'll notice that there is a small orange region. This is called the visual cortex, and this is the area where the brain begins to reconstitute the image that the retina takes a picture of and receives. And then lastly, we have the temporal lobe, which is the big green portion where my thumb is right now. This portion of the brain is the site of auditory reception and is extraordinarily important for auditory and receptive language processing. As a part of this, there's a light green little circle, and that's Wernicke's area. And this is the light green area, it's not the whole area. So it is inferior to the parietal lobe of the brain in the red area that you see here. And this particular area is in the cortex of the dominant temporal lobe. You'll find that if this area is damaged, an individual may be able to have superficially fluent grammatical speech, but they may not be able to use or understand more than the most basic nouns or verbs. So this is also really important and is usually lumped in with Broca's area. The angular gyrus, see the little peach strip at the bottom of the red here. This is the area that seems more involved in semantic processing and speech language. This area is active on both the right and left portions of the brain. So that shows that in some cases, speech is processed on both sides, not just one. So this is my brain. Thanks so much for your time.